And then we had Hydra's head cut off and what that means. Draco constellation looking exactly like the Hydra, or very similar, being depicted in the old astrological maps. 2010, the 13th sign of Ophiuchus coming in, which is the snake charmer. There's a difference between the snake as a symbol of inverted matrix and of the fear-based egoic mind, the separate self that is illusory, that where all the drama happens because it's fear-based. That is fear-based, that is not anchored in truth, that is not aligned with source consciousness or the 12th dimensional currents running. There's no access there. Rion de Rouen, who is a master grid worker, just confirmed on January 25th, we are at Galactic Center and Kali Yuga just ended. Just when this is coming through in the code, this is where we are now at this, and this has been prophesized. I've known about this for so long, and now we're here. And in Nostradamus, Lost Book of Nostradamus predicts the alignment with 13th house Ophiuchus with celestial equator. Ophiuchus came in 2010. Now, 14 years later, 2024, is when Cetus comes in. That's the next sign. That's the 14th sign. I shared last time about my lucid dream, tidal wave and the standing wave, and what a standing wave is, becoming lucid dreamers and whale dreamers, and how the whales singing is exactly the same frequency of the Schumann resonance cascade. It is a bliss experience, because when we are lucid in our dreams, the more lucidity we have, more I enjoy the dream. And I think I can speak in general for that, because what is that bliss? It's no fear. When we're not afraid, when we know we are dreamers, then we are not afraid for the body at all. So when that fear goes, which is a distortion signal, we automatically create through our hearts. And we automatically create our heart's desire. And how it then works is that the dream is a reflection, because we are also aware of that the dream is a reflection, is that the dream and the dreamer are one, and that awareness is of the lucid dreamer. That is the quality of a lucid dream. The standing wave was a conscious wave that communicated with me. It is self-aware. That's what the cascade is. A standing wave is a wave that is self-aware. It is conscious, so it's awake. And that's why we become lucid dreamers, when our brain waves make those, but it's also the heart. It's connected to the heart. And that's why the whales are also so important, because they have this huge heart field. And it's like when they sing, it's ecstasy. It's like you're just floating in ecstasy. Your heart just is wide, and it's like they're encompassing the whole earth with love when they come together. And because this singing, it's the vibration, is they vibrate together, this heart frequency. Oh, and also 88 constellation. 88 is also in the code, is 44. So a diamond is 44. And this is about the diamond sun DNA. But because we're ascending, we are dual beings, we are twin soul beings, we are dual souls. And they're all always counted as one, but it's a dual soul. And then it splits fractals one more time in the third dimension, and we become individual souls and individuals. But our dual part is another soul, also is an individual soul running around somewhere, and we share soul. We are actually one soul. That's a new concept that is coming in now in the Ascension, and for me, that is like extremely exciting. And that's of course also the expansion of consciousness, because we expand to become aware of our other aspects. It's 44 because it's 4 sides of the pyramid, and there's no bottom, 2 where the bottoms are meeting perfectly. And so that's an 8. There are 88 modern constellations. It's the double diamond. Cetus, it's part of the local area of water, And it is at the same time a member of the Perseus family. And the Perseus family includes Pegasus. This is the horse with wings. Water serpent, sea monster, because the Lochness has also been called Lochness monster. What it actually is it's a water horse. And there's a beautiful movie called Water Horse where you can see this. And this is actually what it looks like. It's like a string, right? It's a string of pearls that tells a story that is full of code and messages for this time to be relayed. Every part of the code is connected to every other part of the code. Yeah, so that's that quantum field. Tsunami waves, this is also the remote viewers, right? Talking about tsunami waves in this time, and how that wave that I had always been running away from in panic then turned out to be very calming, and nothing to be afraid of at all. And then it showed itself to me as it stood up, this conscious wave, and then the dolphin and the ancient sea creatures swam through it, which was like totally, it opened up. This was like a lucid dream, right? And it opened up something new, something very deep and magical. Magi see all, which is the big eye that sees all, the one I love. That is source within all of us. And that is that self-recognition of when what you see on the outside recognizes you as itself, and you recognize what you see on the outside also as not as yourself, means you are not separate from that. That was the transformation of fear into magic, into ecstasy, you can say. And the other connection to Lochness, or Scotland, a deep lake in Scotland, is a memory that I had. You could say it was a lucid dream, but it felt more like it was that I experienced something that was my parallel self. I was a water fae in a Scottish lake. It unlocks a way of thinking in the brain that we're now coming into, so that we can also telepathically and communicate with higher dimensional consciousness that is coming in now. Is that the old way of thinking is opening, and the way we understand life and how that understanding comes in it's shifting. Scotia is one of the daughters of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, after which Scotland was named. And I have a special connection to Scotland because I have a special connection to Findhorn. That is a light center in Scotland. And when I read the books by the two founders of Findhorn, Eileen Caddy and Peter Caddy, I read their autobiographies, how they built that. And the fascinating thing is, now globally known, beautiful light center that attracts many, many people to come there and learn about spirituality and life, living in harmony with nature and so forth. How that came about was that they only had £5 in their pockets, and they had two sons, and they just parked their car dump site. And they just parked it there and started a garden. What led them to that place, and this is what's important, was their own inner voice. Eileen Caddy would always write, and Peter knew this and recognized this in the same way, that the most important thing is that you can hear your own inner voice. And in the beginning, it's very, very quiet, because everything on the outside has been conspiring to keep us from it, to not listen to we have to listen to what everybody else is telling us how to do things and what to do, and not to listen to our own truth. And that's why we get confused and we get lost. They gave their focus to their inner voice, and they followed their callings, come what may, like to the T. They followed their own inner voice. And this is also why I love the show called Manifest. I think it's on Peacock, and it's a wonderful family. They all work together, and there's the same way they are following their callings. The inner intuition. Inner intuition, oftentimes, when we're not used to it yet, when we're just coming to it in the beginning, it may seem it doesn't make any sense. I was struggling. This doesn't make any sense. And then they said, when you were a child, would you have questioned this? Or would you have just played with it and just written it down and painted it in whichever way it came. This is like art. Think of it like art. Think of it like you're just painting a picture. Do you question your strokes? No, you just keep painting. And they just say, just keep going with it. Just keep rolling with it, and that's how this all came about. They started a garden, and just lived day to day with this very little money they could scrape by, following their little voice inside, intuition. And then they started to work with the nature spirits. The nature spirits started talking to them, and they learned that there was a part of the garden which is more than 10%, because this was already known in our olden days, not even that far away. It is this tithing, that 10% you always leave to nature. This was more like a third or a quarter. The garden, don't touch that. Just leave it to the fairies. And then they started communicating with the fairies, and because they honored them, they acknowledged that world of the fairies, which is the nature, what we call nature spirits, and they are cohabitating in our space with us, except on a little bit of a different bandwidth, like a different radio station. But our worlds have impact on each other. So what we do here affects them, and how they feel affects us. So when a place has chi, it means that there are nature spirits there, and it feels very good. Started to grow, their vegetables were so humongous, even though the land, it was a dump site, and it was very harsh land. It was like full of sand and very hard you would think nothing would grow there. You couldn't grow a garden there, but it was the contrary. They grew the biggest vegetables. They were getting like awards, in England, how they have these competitions for their vegetables and flowers and whatnot. And this is what attracted people to come, and that was the beginning of this light center in Scotland that I visited. Findhorn, find the horn. When I heard Findhorn for the first time, I always saw unicorn. This daughter from Akhenaten and Nefertiti, she was regents of the area. Stone of Destiny, which was always beneath the throne. She was, or is, Meritaten, her parallel self. And also, this is another very important thing that is coming through in the code. All the different kinds of versions of self at the same time. Within history, we get so confused often about who is who. Scotland was named after her, Akhenaten's daughter, and this is Gemma, Elsa's daughter. Scotia's voyage. So there's an ancient painting that depicts Scotia's voyage. So there's a horse and a horn. 2022 E3 comet, which is this whole code, came in with the comet. As you can see here, next to Cetus, the horn. The location where the comet was, which is also called ZTF. I saw this. Oh, the horn. Elsa mentioned just recently that there's another comet called Devil's Horns coming towards Earth. And when I heard that, it stayed with me. Devil's horns, the unicorn, and then find the horn. What that brought up, the Horn of Valyria. This is from the series Wheel of Time, one of my favorite series. Here we have the Oroborus. Two snakes biting in each other's tail, or one snake biting its own tail. We got the snake again. On the one hand, the snake symbol is the Kundalini. So that is wisdom. Snake stands for wisdom. But when it remains in the first chakra, it just slivers on the earth. The wisdom is that Kundalini is when the snake rises, and then at the level of the heart receives its wings. And a snake with wings is called a dragon. When the snake bites its own tail, it devours itself. That's the self-knowledge. At some point, it grows wings, gives birth to itself. We give birth to ourselves. I always said this, that I first need to give birth to myself before I can give birth, actual birth. And what does that mean, give birth to myself? It means to my true self. It means to see through the illusion of the illusory self, of that separate fear-based conditioned mind, of all the conditionings that cause drama and that come from trauma. Horn of Valyria. So that shows up in this series. Aid is coming from higher dimensions in the perfect time, because it's also Marvel's Endgame, this theme, and his Dark Materials, which is actually the trilogy of the book, starting with the Golden Compass, then the Subtle Knife, and then the Amber Looking Glass. These are three. This book series is one of my favorite books. It is about this great battle at the end of times between the angels that are still in heaven and the fallen angels. Really the last battle that is prophesied to come after we ascended. There will be these 1,000, which is a symbolic amount of time, 1,000 years of peace. Before then, all the powers in the universe gather for one last great battle. This is the immune system of the universe to take out, end the tyranny, parasitical destruction of the parasitical organisms. At the core of that is this first AI from the 11th creation of technology. I don't even believe at this time, and I will explain this later, why that has shifted, that it will be against the fallen angels. I actually believe that the fallen angels will reunite with the angels in heaven, and together they will fight the AI. I think that's what it's going to be. And of course, not just them. Everyone's going to do their part in their own way. You know, not everyone's a fighter, but they're light workers. In the Wheel of Time, the Horn of Valyria, it was always about finding the Horn of Valyria. So for thousands and thousands of years in this world, they were always looking for the Horn of Valyria. But then they found it right in the right time. When it was sounded, it was a calling for help coming from the higher dimensions. Valyria is the birthplace. Now we go to another. This brings us to House of Dragons, and this brings us to Game of Thrones. The dragon people come from Valyria, the birthplace of dragons. They always talk about Valyrian steel, and here we have all the swords, which brings us back to Excalibur. Because there we have, on the one hand, we have the sword of justice and truth, and on the other hand, we have Lucifer's sword. In his Dark Materials, we have the topic also of parallel worlds. The subtle knife is cutting through parallel worlds, and it creates scar tissue in the timelines, which is why the ancient AI menace, which is like a virus, because it takes over all biological, it destroys biological life. This battle, dark against light, it's like they need help across, not just from one timeline, not just from one world, from all the different parallel worlds and timelines. This is happening and it's coming together. And it is a timeline war, because this ancient AI has been traveling in time, and a lot of scars have been created, and there's a lot of mending to be done. The golden compass, yes. The other thing is the alethiometer. So the alethiometer, that Lyra reads the alethiometer. This is what guides her. And the alethiometer is symbols, and they also say, not in the series, but I heard this from Apollomy and other people from the SS, the Secret Space Program, is that the written language from the ETs is mostly, it's not letters, it's symbols. And she can naturally, because she's still a child that is still connected to her soul, and she doesn't doubt herself. Coming into the grind of the system, which makes us doubt our own inner voice. No, we are supposed to listen to what is said on the outside. And that is supposed to be taken as, she can read it, and then when she grows up, she forgets how to read it. And what this is also doing here, this code, is similar to the alethiometer as well. Reading code, language that everyone understands. What we're doing now is reversing the inverted back into the organic. So that also means the Tower of Babel, where no one understood each other anymore, we're coming back together and understanding each other again. Telepathy, how that's coming online, becoming lucid dreamers. Only those with a pure heart could read the alethiometer. At the bottom of the sea, that's the code, you see clear. And at the bottom of the sea is at the bottom of the heart. Telepathy is actually telepathy, when we also feel the other. And the crystalline DNA, our DNA is turning into crystalline.